And we have some people jumping on right now. But we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone back to BayTran's weekly webinar series, Connecting Our Region. Today our focus is the I69 corridor. And in addition to our chairman, Carl Joyner, today we have from the Alliance for I69 Texas. Let me get this right. I tend to call you Murphy Brown. And, okay, so we have
Don't worry,
the chairman of the Alliance.
everybody does.
Well, I worked with your sister, Nancy Brown, at the partnership for many years, so we'll get it right. It's Chairman Sydney Brown for the Alliance for I69 Texas.
Sydney
And,
Brown Murphy.
Yes, thank you. And Judge Murphy also wears a second hat. She's the Polk County judge. So thank you for being here, Judge Murphy. And then we also have from the Alliance for I69, their executive director, Jennifer Shepard. So we thank both of you for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to Carl to say a couple of words about BayTran's interest in the I69 corridor and what our priorities are and how they tie into the Alliance for I69's mission.
So again, welcome everyone that's on today and welcome to our two speakers today. But BayTran really are number 3 things that we're concerned about this year. And one of them is the Grand Parkway, which the I-69 corridor bypass becomes a part of that. And then we're also very interested in the coastal spine. And so really, I live in Kemah, and eventually the bypass will come through Kemah when all the parts of the Grand Parkway are in place. So I'm real interested in this. And I go way back when I lived in Kingwood and I-69 first was talked about. So I forget how long ago that was, but it's a big part of our community and we really appreciate you two being here today.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you again for being here. I think, Judge, you're going to talk a little bit about the I69 Alliance organization and then give us kind of an update. And Jennifer, you'll be around for some questions as well at the end of the presentation.
Yes.
Right.
So
Okay.
You have the slides, right?
I do have the slides. Let me get those ready for you.
Okay, first I can just kind of give you an update on how I ended up getting involved. First of all, I got assigned to I69 work groups to start out with. And there we go. And with the work groups, it became very obvious that the state of Texas needed to move forward in terms of economic development and extending the market, and in terms of trying to get goods and services in and out of the state of Texas as efficiently as possible. Okay, you can skip to the next one.
Okay.
So as you can see here, the I-69 is being built as a series of upgrades to existing footprint as much as possible. But also we have a lot of local entities that have shown an interest and are willing to basically put their money where their mouth is, right? And to invest in the same projects and in the same areas that I-69 is interested, or that the Alliance is interested in building or expanding. And so this kind of gives you an idea of what the I-69 system looks like in Texas right now. And as you can see, it's upgrades on 59, US 77, and US 281. So right now, they're 75 miles from Splendora to Rosenberg that have been included, in a total of 210 miles of I-69 and I-2 that have been added to it. So over half of the overall 1,100 total miles is now signed or is in TxDOT's long-range development process. So that kind of gives you an idea of the extent of the project. If you look at it, it starts basically down, portions of it start in Matamoros in Mexico, through Brownsville, and then again through McAllen and Laredo, and basically connect all the way up through East Texas to Texarkana. Next. So then this gives you the idea of what the major freight corridor looks like. Since a lot of goods and services come in through the ports of Texas, not just the inland ports, but also the waterways. So you have Brownsville, you have Corpus Christi, Freeport, the Port of Houston, Beaumont, the Galveston area, all of those areas where goods and services are coming in. And so it connects all the way from Mexico to Canada. And it engages or involves the states that are included right there. Your 8, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, all the way up through to Michigan and then on to Canada. So it's a multimodal trade corridor that allows us to move high volumes of freight traffic, but that capacity basically needs to be increased. It needs to become larger and it needs to become more efficient. Next. Okay, I love this map. This is the GPS tracking that shows you what occurs in terms of trade when it comes into the state of Texas, what occurs within 7 days of outbound truck flows. And if you look at it, in 7 days, basically the entire nation and Canada and Mexico are immediately impacted with the trade flow that occurs out of the state of Texas. If you look at the state of Texas, it's basically a giant red blob that expands. Basically neurons is what it looks like, like these huge nerve cells that have expanded out of the state of Texas. And that's what they are. It's all traffic flow, and it's all goods and services that are flowing from the state of Texas. And the state of Texas is basically the brain stem that's sending all the products out. Next one. Again, more freight generators. You have movements on the Texas highways that are projected to more than double by the year 2040. You have a multiple groups of economic support that is occurring. You have agriculture. If you look at the listing that is on the right-hand side, you have agriculture, electronics, energy, everything that could possibly become a trade or a product is basically coming through the state of Texas in some form or fashion, whether it's the products themselves or it's the necessary underlying products for construction or building or perpetuating a good or a service. That's all coming through the state. And again, you can look at the map and you see basically the same impact with obviously a huge hub in the portion that you're interested in, which would be the Kemah, Galveston, Houston metroplex that occurs right there. Okay, here's this really illustrates the importance of the I69 border connections. And so all of these data are truly impact everything. If you look at it, you have some states, okay, the state of Mexico, state of Nuevo León, Coahuila, and then the city of Mexico, which are the largest for importing and exporting areas in Mexico, in the country of Mexico. And then the same thing happens in Canada. And so you have a huge flow of goods that are entering the United States along the Texas-Mexico border, and then impacting immediately almost the state of Michigan and the state of California, which is approximately 60% of the total northbound crossings are going up through Michigan and into Canada. So goods entering Mexico along the Texas, entering Mexico are doing the same thing. Along the Texas-Mexico border, Michigan and California, which are basically the opposite ends of the country, coming to Texas, right, triangulating into Texas, again, for close to 60% of total southbound crossings by value. So the goods that are entering and exiting through the state of Texas, again, expand across the entire country. Because you know good and well that goods are flowing down into California from those northern states, and the same thing around Michigan. It's not simply the state of Michigan, but everyone's feeding into the connectivity that occurs, but all of it, or the majority of it, is coming through the state of Texas. So the impact is huge in terms of how you could move those goods and services a whole lot faster if you expanded, if we got to I-69 capacity sooner. Okay, so the guaranteed federal funding for the Interstate Highway Program ended in 1985, and no additional miles are eligible. So we've been working hard through the Texas Transportation Commission, the metropolitan planning organizations, to allocate funding and to get other people to invest in the project, because we're having to compete for funds for other projects all across the country, and certainly across the state of Texas. And we're having to compete with not just rural highway systems, but also urban highway systems. But if you look at I-69, basically it's all across the board. It's not strictly an urban project, and it's not strictly a rural project. And both urban and rural groups are investing, I guess I should say, in the future of transportation in their area. And so there's no longer a dedicated funding source. And so we're having to get more creative. And that's also what is creating this patching, this quilt that we're building across the state with innovative means of funding it, and with basically some input from the local economic development groups, local vendors, local transportation groups, just whoever's interested in participating in the project. Okay, so why is it important to Houston? You know, you are on one side of Houston and I'm on the other. I'm on the north end of Houston. And so we see that's my exit right there that you're looking at, Cleveland, Houston. And so for us to get goods from Houston or to Houston in quickly, then we have got to get rid of the little red lights like occurs in Corrigan, Texas. We have got to get rid of all the mailboxes that are on the side of the road. We've got to create some transportation capabilities in our area that are directly impacting the Houston area. The goods and services cannot get through Polk County or Liberty County if they can't come on through without any kind of stopping or any kind of maneuvering. If you look at just the speed limits that occur on I-69, 59 in Polk County, the speed limits go everywhere from 40 to 75 on the same highway. And you have to stop for red lights. So obviously at some point in time, it's going to be zero, right? So what we're trying to do is we want to continue upgrades on I-69 that will stretch the market reach of the area further and further into the United States and into Mexico and Canada, make it safe and adequate roadways, because it's crucial for the Port of Houston to be able to get their goods out quicker. And just because we managed to get them through urban congestion doesn't mean that then they can get through the different set of issues that occur in the rural areas. So the Grand Parkway connection to I-69 is projected for completion in 2022. So hopefully we will be able to move forward and expand further and further. The project completion status for Rosenberg to Kendleton is 2021, Splendora to Cleveland 2023, and so we're slowly inching along, but we want to make sure that we do not lose momentum at this point in time. We want to make sure that we understand everyone's a little strapped. We know what a major impact COVID has had, but we need to make a commitment to economic development, and that includes transportation. Okay, the number and the value of the I-69 project and TxDOT's UTP program has increased in the last year. In the last few years, we all know that we had Prop 1 and Prop 7 that has provided a lot of assistance for the state of Texas. 2021 UTP also includes funding for more than 70 projects on the I-69 and some reconstruction expansion of I-69 in Houston, along with about $4 billion for projects throughout mostly rural areas. And so we're moving forward. We just want to maintain that momentum, and we want to make sure that we keep transportation at the forefront of everybody's focus, because that's really the only way that we're going to come out of this economy and survive COVID-19, is if we can bump our economy up and continue to expand it. Congress has agreed to extend the FAST Act for 1 year. We were hoping to get more done, but we were not able to go to Washington, D.C. and harass them personally to make sure that we had a strong commitment. So the extension of it for 1 year is good for us. At least it shows that there's still a commitment there. So the reauthorization was good news. We do have an opportunity to make some progress on some of the I-69 priorities. We have still moved forward with requesting that they eliminate restrictions on adding the completed I-69 segments. There doesn't seem to be much pushback on that, on going ahead and putting the signage up. We are asking for more federal funding for freight corridor projects, and we are also requesting more flexibility for Texas under the freight program funds, and increasing Texas rate of return because at this point in time, Texas is actually a donor state. And so other states are benefiting from Texans' money. We want it back. We've worked hard to keep Austin, all our representatives in Austin, informed. We kept I-69 high on their agenda. Our Senate Transportation Chairman, Robert Nichols, has been very good about staying engaged with us throughout the years, and Commissioner New was very good. So we have had some good support in Austin, but we want to make sure that we stay on the forefront and that we keep them completely involved and engaged. So we have billions in scheduled projects that are across the I-69 route, and we continue to try to keep them informed and involved in the project development process. Along with other transportation interests, the Alliance played an active role, obviously, in the passage of Prop 1 and Prop 7, and we will continue to be active in legislative sessions, working with the state of Texas and with the federal government to whatever degree they will allow us. Okay, it was formed in 1994, and at that time, the Port of Houston and the Greater Houston Partnership were some of the funding members. All segments of the route are represented in the Alliance, and obviously we have an experienced team in both Texas and Washington that provide support and help us. And basically, Jennifer was nice. She put persistence has helped build momentum. It's just sheer hard-headedness that has kept most of the persistence going, because we just have to do this. Otherwise, we are going to look up and we're going to realize that we did not control the direction that this type of development went, and that we had very little input, and we're going to live to regret some of those things. We don't want to look up and realize that we do not have the infrastructure needs to meet the demands that we know are coming our way. And so we don't need to kick the can any further down the road. We need to act now as much as possible. So we are trying to get people to consider becoming members of the Alliance, and providing some support for the initiative, so that we don't lose momentum and we can continue to move forward. Okay, And then that's the information. Anybody have any questions?
Okay.
Questions, comments, etc.?
Let's see. Let's take a look and see if we had any questions come in. Now, I do want to mention a couple of weeks ago, you guys had your DC fly-in, which normally you have everybody from the Texas counties and representatives come up and lobby in DC. You did it virtually this year, and I think having participated in a couple of those, it was a pretty good success. I thought it was well organized. And do you guys envision the same thing for your Austin delegation?
We are looking at every option, and certainly Jennifer can respond to that better than I can, since she's the one that organizes all of that. But we did get good feedback, or I received good feedback on the DC fly-in, the virtual DC fly-in. But at the same time, so we're going to do that as much as we are forced to do it, I guess I should say, because you still lose some of the impact when you're sitting in someone's office, right? Engaging with them and able to point things out or show them things. It's just more effective all the way around. I do think that we did have good success. We did have good feedback. We had good questions from some of our legislators in terms of what we were doing and how we were going about it.
Okay, I see. Bruce Mann, your hand is up. Do you have a question? I can unmute you if you've got a question. Okay. Okay. Well, Bruce Mann from Port of Houston, can you talk a little bit about more your relationships with some of the ports and how they've helped to advance the initiative?
You want Bruce to do it or me to do it?
If you can do that.
Okay, so on the Alliance side, we try to maintain as good a relationship as possible with all the ports, because obviously they are one of the groups that's going to benefit the most. So we do have a good relationship with the ports. The Port of Houston, Corpus Christi, Freeport, Brownsville, all of those ports have been engaged with us. We obviously want to see as much involvement as possible from the ports, because that is where a lot of our goods and services come through. And so obviously we would like to see as much engagement as possible from the ports, and as much engagement as possible from those counties that are home to those ports. So I think that we all kind of have a little bit of an obligation if we are directly impacted, especially if we're directly impacted by the goods and services that are coming in. And so that would include those cities, those economic development groups, the counties that are home to those cities and ports. So we do as much as possible want to maintain a working relationship, because they have a wealth of knowledge that we otherwise do not have. You know, they are the boots on the ground. And so we want to do whatever will benefit them the most and allow them to run their businesses as efficiently as possible.
Teresa, if I can add to that real briefly, like the judge has just mentioned, ports are critical to our membership. Matter of fact, the Port of Houston was a founding member of the Alliance for I69 Texas. I'll show a little bit of my age here, going back to the era of Ned Holmes. He was a huge proponent for the development of I69 and stated very clearly that as efficient as the port can control business operations within the confines of their property, their competitiveness in the global market depends tremendously on the ability to move that freight through Houston. And so improvements to I69, which was US 59 back then and I69 now, directly affect the Port of Houston operations. And the Port of Houston was really a jumping off point to get a number of the ports involved up and down the route. So we do, as Judge Murphy mentioned, have a number of the Texas ports as members, paying members of the I69 Alliance. There are a few others that we would like to join in moving forward, but I think it's very clear from the ports that have participated since the get-go how important they recognize this highway infrastructure is to their business effectiveness.
And a final question, because I know you both have to jump onto another call. What can BayTran do to help your initiative?
Well, obviously, monetary support is always welcome, right? And we are trying to encourage. It's like any other organization. Some of it's going to ebb and flow a little bit. You know, you're going to have things that change within the organization, or money gets tight and you back off of one thing, and because you have to focus on something else. And so basically, I think a lot of it is to try to refocus all of us again on I-69, get a renewed, refreshed commitment from people that are in fact benefiting, that should now recognize that there's a benefit to it, and be a part of the team, right? Come on board and provide us with assistance. Because sometimes it's not just, it's when you make a commitment to something, then you become more engaged. And then you also talk to your legislators, you end up talking to the guy who knows the guy type of thing. And so you're promoting it without really being completely self-conscious about it. And so there are some counties and cities and organizations that have benefited from the I-69 Alliance. And so we would like to engage them further and get them to also make a commitment right along with the rest of us, so that we can get this done quicker, because all of us are going to benefit. But we need a commitment from everybody.
Understood. Carl, do you want to make a couple of remarks to wrap it up?
Yeah, so I find this very interesting. I really appreciate the two of you being on today, but I guess I show my age too, but I remember when all this started years ago, and I really appreciate that you guys keep pushing this, because it's probably one of the most economic indicators and things that will affect our community for years to come. And when I travel up that way through Corrigan, which is now a speed trap, that light's real problem. Okay, so I'm anxious for you to get that fixed. So really, thank you all so much for being on today. I really, really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge Murphy. We appreciate it. Thank you, Carl. And before we lose everybody, we just want to remind you, Thursday is our 21st annual State of the Counties, happening virtually, of course. And then October 26th, next Monday, we've got a redo with Congressman Olson. So join us for those. And then November 9th, we've got an update from the Port of Galveston. So keep coming back. We appreciate your support, and we will see you all again on Thursday. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.